My name is Brooke Mitchell, and I'm 28 years old. I never thought a single social media notification could rip my heart out, but there it was on my phone. A family photo with everyone but me, captioned, "Only the most beloved people." The coffee I was drinking suddenly tasted bitter as my stomach twisted into knots. Years of feeling like the forgotten middle child crystallized in that moment, staring at those smiling faces, my family, celebrating without me, not even bothering to invite me. Before I tell you what happened after I saw that photo, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if family drama hits close to home for you too. Growing up in suburban Boston, I always felt like I existed in the negative space between my siblings. My older brother Jason, now 32, was the firstborn son who could do no wrong in my father's eyes. My younger sister Ashley, 24, was the baby of the family and my mother's obvious favorite. And me? I was just there, the middle child. The responsible one who never caused problems, but never received praise either. Our house in Lexington was comfortable but not extravagant. Dad worked as an engineering manager at a tech firm, and Mom was an elementary school teacher who somehow always found extra energy for Ashley's dance recitals, but was too tired for my academic competitions. Family photos from those years tell the story better than I could. Mom always positioned with her arm around Ashley, Dad with his hand on Jason's shoulder, and me slightly off-center, looking like I was photoshopped in as an afterthought. By the time I was 10, I'd learned to stop asking why Jason got a new bike when I was still riding a hand-me-down with peeling paint. I stopped questioning why Ashley's birthdays featured elaborate parties while mine was usually an afterthought dinner at a chain restaurant. I adapted, believing that if I just achieved enough, they'd finally see me. In high school, I threw myself into academics. While Jason was celebrated for his mediocre C+ average because he was trying his best, my straight A's were met with a disinterested, "That's nice, honey." When I became editor of the school newspaper, Dad asked if that would actually help with college applications, while the same week, Ashley's participation in the school play, she had 2 lines, warranted a bouquet of flowers and dinner at her favorite restaurant. College was my escape. I chose Northeastern University, close enough to visit but far enough to breathe. Unlike Jason, whose college tuition was fully covered by our parents, I received the "you need to learn financial responsibility" speech. I worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a 3.9 GPA in finance. My parents visited exactly twice in 4 years, once during freshman move-in and once for graduation. They visited Ashley at UCLA 7 times her freshman year alone. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a respected investment firm in Boston. While my colleagues' families sent congratulatory flowers or took them to celebration dinners, my parents' response was, "Well, at least you found something." When Jason got hired as a sales rep at a local brewery, a job he got through Dad's golf buddy, my parents threw a backyard barbecue. 2 years ago, I was passed over for a promotion I'd worked incredibly hard for. Devastated, I called Mom, seeking some comfort. After listening for approximately 45 seconds, she interrupted with, "Oh, honey, that reminds me. Did I tell you Ashley got cast in a local commercial? We're all so excited." The conversation shifted entirely to Ashley's 5-second appearance in a furniture store ad. Despite everything, I kept trying. I sent birthday cards, called on weekends, showed up for family events even when the invitations felt like afterthoughts. "Oh, you can come too, Brooke, if you're not too busy," was the standard addition to family plans. I brought thoughtful gifts to Christmas while receiving generic bath sets that still had the clearance stickers attached. I listened to hours of stories about Jason and Ashley while my own life events went unasked about. Last year, I had a health scare, a suspicious lump that thankfully turned out to be benign. When I mentioned it to my mother after getting the all clear, her response was, "Well, it's good you're fine. You know your father," and I couldn't have handled another thing with Ashley's graduation coming up. The only person who truly saw me was my best friend Stephanie. We met in college, bonding over being the responsible ones in our respective friend groups. "Your family is criminally oblivious," she'd say after hearing about yet another slight. "You deserve so much better." I'd laugh it off, making excuses for them. They're busy, they're distracted, they don't mean it. 3 months ago, I received a major promotion at work, senior investment analyst. It came with a substantial raise and my own office. When I called my parents with the news, Dad said, "That's nice, honey, but can I call you back? Jason's car broke down and I need to figure out how to get him to work tomorrow." He never called back. When I texted my mom, she responded 8 hours later with "good for you," followed immediately by a long paragraph about Ashley's graduate school applications. 2 weeks ago, my boss selected me to represent our firm at an important conference in Chicago. It was a big deal, recognition of my hard work and expertise. The conference fell on the same weekend as my cousin Megan's baby shower, which I regretfully had to miss. I sent a generous gift and my apologies. My mother's response: "Well, family should come first, but I guess your priorities are different." This past week has been intense at work, preparing for a major client presentation. I've been arriving at the office by 7 a.m. and leaving after 8 p.m. each night. My colleagues have noticed my dedication, with my direct supervisor Rachel commenting on how impressed she was with my attention to detail. For once, I felt truly valued for my contributions. Which brings me to yesterday, Wednesday afternoon. I was taking a 5-minute coffee break between meetings when the notification popped up on my phone. A family gathering I knew nothing about. A caption that cut deeper than they could have possibly imagined. And the beginning of a reckoning that was long overdue. The notification tone from my phone interrupted my concentration as I reviewed quarterly projections for a key client. Normally, I'd ignore it, but I was waiting for an important email from our legal department, so I glanced down. The Instagram notification preview showed my mother's account had posted a new photo. Out of habit, I tapped it. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips as the image loaded. There they were: Mom, Dad, Jason, Ashley, Aunt Linda, Uncle Steve, my cousins Megan and Taylor, even my grandmother, all smiling widely around a large table at Giovanni's, my father's favorite Italian restaurant. The table was laden with wine glasses and appetizers, everyone leaning in together as if sharing the world's best inside joke. But it was the caption that made my hand shake so badly I had to set the mug down before I spilled coffee everywhere. Only the most beloved people. Nothing better than family dinner with those who matter most. #blessed #family first. Those who matter most. I stared at my phone, the office around me fading away as blood rushed to my ears. There was no mention of my absence, no "missing you, Brooke," or "wish you were here." Not even an acknowledgement that a family member was missing from this gathering of those who matter most. My first coherent thought was wondering when this dinner had even happened. I scrolled to check the timestamp, posted 20 minutes ago, but the dinner had clearly been last night, Tuesday. A Tuesday night dinner that apparently warranted gathering every single member of my immediate and extended family, none of whom had thought to mention it to me. "Brooke, are you okay?" Rachel's voice broke through my daze. I looked up to find my supervisor standing in my office doorway, concern etched across her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I said automatically, the practiced response of someone who's spent a lifetime pretending everything is okay. "Just surprised by something." Rachel stepped further into my office, closing the door behind her. "The Harrison presentation isn't until 3. Take a minute if you need it." As soon as she left, I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it into a stall before the tears came. I pressed my hand against my mouth to muffle the sound, my body shaking with silent sobs. The rational part of my brain tried to intervene. Maybe it was last minute, maybe they thought I was too busy with work, maybe they tried to reach me and couldn't. But my phone history showed no missed calls, no text messages asking about my availability. And the formal arrangement of the table, the fact that relatives who lived an hour away were present, made it clear this was planned. I splashed cold water on my face, applied some concealer to hide the redness around my eyes, and returned to my office. My phone pinged again, a text from Ashley. "OMG, did you see Mom's post? The food was amazing last night. You should have been there." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wasn't aware there was a dinner planned. I finally typed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. It was kind of spontaneous. "Dad wanted Italian." Another message followed quickly. We figured you were busy with work stuff anyway. Spontaneous. With relatives who lived in different cities. With my grandmother who needed transportation arrangements days in advance. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through recent family text messages. 3 days ago, in the family group chat I was part of, Mom had asked about weekend plans for Sunday, but nothing about a Tuesday dinner. Had they created a separate chat without me? The thought sent another wave of pain through my chest. This wasn't an isolated incident. Last Christmas, I discovered they'd all gone ice skating together when Instagram suggested I might like a photo my cousin Taylor had posted, all of them in scarves and mittens, hot chocolates in hand. When I asked about it later, Mom said, "Oh, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing." 2 months ago, I found out they'd had a backyard barbecue to celebrate Jason's girlfriend moving in with him. I only knew because Ashley accidentally mentioned it during a phone call. "I thought you knew," she said without apology. "You're always working late anyway." As I sat at my desk, staring blankly at spreadsheets that now seemed meaningless, I decided to call my mother. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Hi, Mom, it's me. I saw the family photo from dinner last night. I didn't know about it. Call me back when you can." I texted my dad next. "Looks like you had a nice family dinner last night. Wish I'd known about it." 20 minutes later, his response was just a casual thing. "Figured you were busy with that presentation you mentioned." The presentation I'd mentioned once in passing weeks ago. The same father who couldn't remember my college graduation date had suddenly developed a detailed memory of my work schedule. I tried calling Jason during my lunch break. "Hey, what's up?" he answered, sounds of his sales floor in the background. "Did you know I wasn't invited to dinner last night?" I asked, skipping the pleasantries. A pause. "I thought Mom said you couldn't make it." "No one asked me, Jason." I had no idea it was happening. Oh. Another pause. "Well, it wasn't that big a deal. Just dinner. Just dinner. With every single member of our family." With a caption proclaiming the attendees were the most beloved people. By the end of the workday, I felt hollowed out. I opened the family group chat and typed, "I saw the dinner photo from last night. Why wasn't I told about a family gathering?" Ashley responded first. "It wasn't a big thing, just dinner." "Mom, Brooke, don't make this a drama. We know how busy you are with work." "Dad, your mother handled the invites. I assumed you were told." "Jason, can we not do this in the group chat?" Aunt Linda, apparently oblivious to the tension. "It was so lovely seeing everyone. We should do it more often." No apologies. No acknowledgement of how hurtful their actions and that caption were. I called Stephanie on my way home, tears streaming down my face as I filled her in. "Brooke, this is beyond thoughtless," she said, anger evident in her voice. "That caption especially, who does that? Do they have any idea how hurtful that is?" "They think I'm overreacting," I said, pulling into my apartment complex. "Maybe I am." "Stop that right now," Stephanie said firmly. "Your feelings are completely valid. They excluded you and then rubbed it in your face, whether intentionally or not." That night, I didn't respond to the additional dismissive texts from my family. Instead, I ran a bath, poured a glass of wine, and tried to process my feelings. Was this really about one dinner, one photo, one thoughtless caption? Or was it the culmination of a lifetime of being the forgotten child, the one whose needs and feelings always came last? I pulled out my journal, a practice recommended by a therapist I briefly saw after a difficult breakup last year. "Write what you're feeling without censoring yourself," she'd advised. 3 pages later, tear-stained and raw, the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was my life. The middle child who had been gradually, systematically pushed to the periphery of her own family until she was literally out of the frame. Thursday morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of clarity. The hurt was still there, a dull ache beneath my ribs, but something else had emerged overnight: anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but a slow-burning resolve that had been building for years without my recognition. My mother still hadn't returned my call from yesterday. I decided to try again while driving to work. "Hello," she answered, sounding distracted. "Hi, Mom. Did you get my message yesterday?" Oh, Brooke, yes, sorry. I've been running around helping Ashley prepare for her interview at the graduate program. What's up? I took a deep breath. I wanted to talk about the family dinner I wasn't invited to. An audible sigh. Brooke, it really wasn't a planned thing. Your father wanted Italian. I called your grandmother since she loves Giovanni's, and then it just made sense to include everyone else since they were all available. Everyone except me, I said quietly. You didn't even try to see if I was available. Honey, you're always working late. And you've missed the last 3 family gatherings for work reasons. That's not fair. I missed Megan's baby shower because I was at a conference my boss specifically selected me for. And I only missed Dad's birthday because I had the flu, which you know. Well, regardless, we just assumed you'd be too busy. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal about one dinner. It's not about one dinner, Mom. It's about the pattern. And that caption, only the most beloved people? How do you think that made me feel? Oh, for heaven's sake, it's just an Instagram caption. I didn't mean anything by it. You know how I like those inspirational phrases. The conversation continued in circles, with my mother minimizing my feelings and reframing the situation to make me sound unreasonable. By the time I reached my office, nothing had been resolved. During my lunch break, I tried my father. His secretary put me through after a brief hold. Brooke? Everything okay? I'm heading into a meeting in 5. Of course he was. Dad, I wanted to talk about the family dinner and why I wasn't included. Your mother handled all that, he said immediately. But listen, we just figured you were wrapped up in work stuff. You're always so dedicated to your career, which is great. So dedicated that I don't deserve to be included in family events. Now that's not what I said. His voice took on that slightly patronizing tone he used when he thought someone was being irrational. Nobody was trying to exclude you. It just happened that everyone else was available. Did anyone actually check if I was available? A pause. Well, no, but based on past experience. Past experience of me occasionally missing events for legitimate reasons like being sick or required to travel for work. Brooke, I really don't have time for this right now. We'll talk about it on Sunday at dinner, okay? Your mother's making pot roast. Sunday dinner. The weekly tradition I religiously attended despite often feeling like an outsider there too. At least that invitation hadn't been rescinded. Yet, after work, I tried Jason again, hoping my brother might show more understanding. Hey, got a minute? I asked when he answered. Sure, just walking to my car. What's up? I'm still upset about being excluded from the family dinner. Jason sighed. Look, I get that your feelings are hurt, but I think you're blowing this out of proportion. It was just dinner. Would you feel the same way if you were the only one not invited? If you saw a photo captioned only the most beloved people, and you weren't in it? I don't know. Maybe not. But Brooke, you know Mom didn't mean anything by that caption. She's just not good with social media. This isn't just about the caption or one dinner, Jason. This is about years of being treated like an afterthought in this family. Come on, that's not fair. You're always included in important things. Am I? Because it seems like the definition of important shifts conveniently to exclude me. When I miss something for work, I'm prioritizing career over family. When you missed Christmas 2 years ago for a ski trip with friends, it was understandable because you work so hard and needed a break. That was different, he said defensively. How? How was it different? I don't know, it just was. Look, I've got to go. We can talk about this on Sunday, okay? Another deflection, another dismissal. I was starting to see a pattern. That evening, I decided to address the issue directly in the family group chat, hoping that perhaps in a group setting, someone might actually acknowledge the problem. I need to address something that's been bothering me, I wrote. I was hurt to discover the family dinner through social media, especially with that caption. I understand gatherings sometimes come together quickly, but a simple text asking if I was available would have meant a lot. It's not about missing one dinner. It's about feeling consistently excluded from family events and moments. The responses came quickly. Mom, Brooke, you're overreacting. Nobody was trying to exclude you. Dad, let's discuss this on Sunday rather than in a group text. Ashley, OMG, why are you making such a big deal about this? You're always so dramatic. Jason, can we please drop this? It was just dinner. Aunt Linda, I thought you were invited, dear. Miscommunication happens in families. Uncle Steve, Margaret, I think Brooke has a point. We should have checked if she could join. My mother, Steve, you're not helping. Brooke knows we love her, she's just sensitive. Sensitive. The label that had been applied to me since childhood whenever I dared express hurt feelings. Too sensitive. Dramatic. Making a big deal out of nothing. I turned off my phone notifications and called Stephanie. They're gaslighting you, she said after I recounted the conversations. Classic family dynamics, maintain the status quo at all costs, and anyone who questions it is the problem. Am I being too sensitive though? Absolutely not. Look, if it was truly a spontaneous dinner, someone could have texted you. Hey, we're at Giovanni's, join us if you can. That would have taken 5 seconds. And that caption was thoughtless at best, deliberately hurtful at worst. What do I do now? They're expecting me at Sunday dinner, but I don't even want to go. What do you want to do? Stephanie asked. I considered the question. I need some space to think. But I also don't want to prove them right by not showing up and giving them another reason to label me as distant or difficult. Brooke, you need to put yourself first for once. Take the weekend to process. Journal, reflect, whatever helps you gain clarity. But don't make decisions based on fear of their judgment. That's how you've been living your whole life. She was right. I spent the weekend alone, declining invitations from colleagues to go out Friday night and from Stephanie to join her for Saturday brunch. Instead, I cleaned my apartment, went for long walks, and filled pages of my journal with memories and reflections. By Sunday morning, I had gained some perspective. This wasn't just about one dinner or one caption. This was about a lifetime of subtle exclusion and dismissal. The question was, what was I going to do about it? Sunday evening arrived, and despite my reservations, I found myself driving to my parents' suburban home for dinner. Part of me wanted to skip it entirely, but a stronger part needed resolution, needed to address this face-to-face rather than through texts and phone calls that were too easily dismissed. I parked behind Jason's Jeep in the driveway, noting that everyone else had already arrived. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open, revealing my mother's carefully composed smile. There you are. We were wondering if you were coming. No apology, no acknowledgement of our previous conversations. Just the implication that I might not show up, reinforcing their narrative of me as the distant, career-obsessed daughter. I said I would be here, I replied, handing her the wine as I stepped inside. The house smelled like pot roast and tension. In the living room, Dad was watching golf while Jason and his girlfriend Melissa sat scrolling through their phones. Ashley was setting the table, pointedly not looking at me. Brooke's here, Mom announced unnecessarily. Dad glanced up. There she is. How's work going, kiddo? Work. Always their first question, as if my career was my entire identity. Not, how are you, or we missed you. Work is fine, I said, settling onto the couch. How was the spontaneous family dinner at Giovanni's? A moment of uncomfortable silence followed. Mom cleared her throat. Dinner will be ready in about 10 minutes. Great, I said, maintaining eye contact. Plenty of time to discuss why I wasn't invited to a family gathering that clearly wasn't as spontaneous as everyone claimed. Jason sighed loudly. Are we really doing this now? When would you prefer to do it, Jason? Because every time I've tried to address it this week, I've been told to wait until Sunday. Well, it's Sunday. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Brooke, I've already explained that it wasn't a planned event. It just came together. With Grandma, who needs transportation arrangements. And Aunt Linda and Uncle Steve, who live an hour away. And Megan, who has a newborn. That all just came together spontaneously without any planning. Dad muted the TV, finally sensing the conversation required his attention. Your mother said it wasn't planned long in advance. Maybe a day or two. It wasn't a big deal. A day or two is plenty of time to send a text message, I countered. And if it wasn't a big deal, why did every single other member of this family need to be there? You're always working late, Ashley interjected. And when you do come to family things, you're checking your phone every 5 minutes. That's not true, and you know it. I prioritize family events whenever I can. The difference is, when I occasionally miss something for legitimate reasons, I'm made to feel guilty. When any of you miss something, it's completely understandable. Here we go again, Mom muttered, heading back to the kitchen. I followed her. What's that supposed to mean? It means you always feel like you're being treated unfairly. You've been like this since you were a child, Brooke. Always so sensitive, always keeping score. Her words hit like a slap. Keeping score? Is that what you think this is about? Well, isn't it? You're upset about one dinner you missed. I'm upset about being excluded. I'm upset about seeing a family photo captioned, "Only the most beloved people," and not being in it. Do you have any idea how that felt? Mom turned to face me, exasperation clear in her expression. It was just a caption, Brooke. I found it on one of those quote websites. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, I said, my voice cracking slightly. Everything means something when you've spent your entire life feeling like an afterthought in your own family. That's ridiculous. You've never been an afterthought. Really? When was the last time anyone in this family asked about my life? My hopes, my dreams, my feelings? The last time anyone celebrated my achievements with the same enthusiasm they show for Jason's or Ashley's. We celebrated your promotion, Dad said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. No, you didn't. When I called to tell you, you cut the conversation short because Jason's car broke down. You never called back. Mom sent a text that said, "Good for you," before immediately changing the subject to Ashley's graduate school applications. My family exchanged uncomfortable glances. We've always supported you, Mom insisted. Support isn't just saying, "Good job," before changing the subject. Support is showing interest, asking questions, celebrating achievements. Support is making someone feel valued and included. I took a deep breath. Support is making sure they're invited to family dinners. An uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Finally, Dad spoke. I think you're blowing this out of proportion, Brooke. Nobody meant to hurt your feelings. Intent doesn't negate impact, I said, recalling a phrase from one of Stephanie's psychology textbooks. Whether you meant to hurt me or not, you did. And instead of acknowledging that hurt, you're all dismissing it and making me feel crazy for even bringing it up. We're not making you feel crazy, Ashley said, rolling her eyes. You're doing that all on your own. That's enough, Ashley, Dad warned, but the damage was done. By the way, Melissa interjected awkwardly, are we still on for brunch next Saturday at that new place downtown? Jason said your mom made reservations for everyone. The kitchen fell silent. All eyes turned to Melissa, who seemed to realize too late that she'd said something wrong. What brunch? I asked, looking from face to face. More uncomfortable glances. It's just a casual thing, Mom finally said. For Ashley's birthday. Ashley's birthday is in 3 weeks, I pointed out. And this is the first I'm hearing about any brunch. We weren't sure about your availability, Dad said weakly. Did anyone bother to check? Did anyone think to send me a text saying, hey, we're planning a birthday brunch for Ashley, are you free? No one answered. Unbelievable, I whispered, the full weight of the situation crashing down on me. This isn't a one-time oversight. This is a pattern. I'm systematically being excluded from my own family. Now you're being dramatic, Ashley said. Something inside me snapped. Years of repressed hurt and anger surged to the surface. I'm not being dramatic. I'm finally acknowledging what's been happening for years. I'm the middle child who's never been enough. Not smart enough, not successful enough, not present enough. Jason can do no wrong because he's the firstborn son. Ashley gets everything handed to her because she's the baby. And me? I'm just invisible. Unless you need something or unless you need someone to blame. Tears streamed down my face as years of accumulated pain poured out. Do you know what it's like to see family photos where everyone else is hugging and I'm standing slightly apart? To hear about family events after they've happened? To have my achievements dismissed while my siblings are celebrated? To be told I'm too sensitive or dramatic whenever I express hurt feelings? The kitchen was silent except for my ragged breathing. And the worst part is you don't even see it. You don't see how you've made me feel like an outsider in my own family. That caption, "Only the most beloved people," just confirmed what I've felt my entire life, that I'm not one of the beloved people in this family. Mom reached toward me. Brooke, that's not true. We love you. I stepped back. Love should be active, Mom. Love should be inclusive. Love should make people feel valued and seen. I grabbed my purse from the counter. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. You're leaving? Dad asked incredulously. What about dinner? I've lost my appetite, I said, moving toward the front door. Enjoy your family dinner. Seems like you do just fine without me anyway. Brooke, don't be ridiculous, Mom called after me. You're overreacting. I turned back one last time. No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I'm reacting exactly as I should have years ago. The drive home passed in a blur of tears and emotional exhaustion. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from my family, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them. Instead, I called Stephanie. I completely lost it, I said when she answered. I said everything I've been holding back for years. Good, she replied without hesitation. It's about time. I don't know what happens now, I admitted, pulling into my apartment complex. I've never confronted them like this before. Now you take care of yourself, Stephanie said gently. And maybe consider talking to someone professional about all this. As I sat in my parked car, emotionally drained but somehow lighter, I realized she was right. This wasn't something I could process alone, and it wasn't something my family was equipped to help me with. After years of pushing down my feelings to keep the peace, I had finally reached my breaking point. And strangely, amid the pain and uncertainty, it felt like the first step toward something better. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in over a year. My emotional outburst had left me drained, and I knew I wouldn't be effective at the office. My boss was understanding, telling me to take care of myself and that the team would cover my meetings. After a restless night, I had dozens of messages and missed calls from family members. Most were variations of "you're overreacting" or "let's just move past this," with a few more sympathetic notes from Uncle Steve and Grandma, who seemed genuinely concerned. I couldn't face responding to any of them yet. Instead, I did something I'd been considering for months. I called a therapist. Stephanie had recommended Dr. Kimberly Taylor, a family systems specialist, several times. To my surprise, they had a cancellation that very afternoon. Dr. Taylor's office was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and comfortable seating. She was a Black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. So, Brooke, what brings you in today? She asked after we'd completed the initial paperwork. For the next 50 minutes, I poured out my story, not just about the family dinner and photo, but about a lifetime of feeling peripheral in my own family. Dr. Taylor listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing me to speak uninterrupted. What you're describing sounds like a family dynamic where you've been cast in the role of the invisible child, she said when I finally ran out of words. It's actually quite common in family systems, especially with middle children. The firstborn often gets attention for being the trailblazer, the youngest for being the baby, and the middle child becomes the responsible, self-sufficient one who doesn't need as much attention. But I do need attention, I said quietly. I need to feel valued and included. Of course you do. Everyone does. And from what you've described, there's also an element of scapegoating happening, where family tensions or problems get projected onto one member who becomes the problem. So when I express hurt feelings, I'm labeled too sensitive because it's easier than addressing the actual issue. Dr. Taylor nodded. Exactly. It maintains the family homeostasis, their balanced state. When you push back against your assigned role, the system works to put you back in your place. By the end of the session, I felt a strange mixture of validation and sadness. It was comforting to know that what I was experiencing had a name, that I wasn't imagining it. But it was also painful to have confirmed that the dynamic wasn't likely to change without significant work that would require my family's participation. For now, I want you to focus on establishing healthy boundaries, Dr. Taylor advised as our time came to a close. That might mean taking some space from family interactions while you process these feelings. It might mean being selective about which family events you attend. The important thing is that your decisions should be based on what's healthy for you, not on fear of their reactions. We scheduled another session for the following week, and I left feeling more centered than I had in days. That evening, I made a decision. I would take 2 weeks of minimal contact with my family to focus on my own healing. I sent a brief, clear text to the family group. I need some time and space to process my feelings about our family dynamic. I'll be stepping back from communication for a couple of weeks. Please respect this boundary. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk. Then I muted the conversation before anyone could respond. Setting boundaries was new territory for me, the peacekeeper, the one who always accommodated everyone else's needs. It felt uncomfortable but necessary. The next 2 weeks became a period of intense self-reflection and care. I returned to work, finding comfort in the structure and in an environment where my contributions were recognized and valued. My colleagues noticed the change in me, a new assertiveness in meetings, a willingness to speak up rather than deferring to others. On Dr. Taylor's recommendation, I established a daily journaling practice, documenting not just my thoughts about family, but also moments where I felt confident, valued, or at peace. I started reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with, many of whom expressed they'd missed me but assumed I was too busy with family and work. I always prioritized family events. Even when I felt unwelcome, I admitted to my college friend Mia over coffee. I kept hoping that if I showed up enough, they'd finally see me. "But you're worth seeing without having to earn it," Mia replied, squeezing my hand. Some of us knew that all along. Weekends, which I'd typically reserved for family obligations, became opportunities for self-discovery. I took a pottery class I'd been curious about for years. I explored hiking trails around Boston. I spent an entire Sunday reading for pleasure, something I hadn't done since college. Stephanie came over regularly, bringing dinner and emotional support. "You seem different," she observed one evening. "More present. More, you." "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I'm finally living for myself rather than for approval I'm never going to get." During my second therapy session, Dr. Taylor introduced the concept of chosen family versus biological family. Many people find that their most nurturing, supportive relationships aren't with biological relatives, she explained. Building a community of people who truly see and value you is just as legitimate as maintaining blood ties. "But I don't want to give up on my family," I admitted. "Despite everything, I love them." "This isn't about abandoning your biological family," she assured me. "It's about expanding your concept of family to include people who meet your emotional needs. It's also about approaching your biological family from a position of strength and self-worth rather than need and validation seeking." We discussed concrete strategies for setting boundaries when I eventually resumed contact with my family. "Remember, boundaries aren't punishment," Dr. Taylor emphasized. "They're guidelines for how you need to be treated to maintain the relationship." By the end of the 2 weeks, I'd experienced a profound internal shift. The hurt from the family photo and dinner exclusion remained, but it no longer defined me. I had begun to build a life centered on my own values and needs rather than on seeking approval from people who seemed constitutionally incapable of providing it. I also developed a clearer understanding of what healthy relationships should feel like. Through reconnecting with old friends and deepening connections with supportive people like Stephanie, I experienced what it was like to be valued without condition, to have my feelings acknowledged rather than dismissed. When I returned to Dr. Taylor for our third session, I felt ready to address the family situation directly. "I want to have an honest conversation with them," I said. "Not from a place of hurt and accusation, but from a place of clarity about what I need moving forward." "That's significant progress," she noted. "Let's work on a script that clearly communicates your feelings and boundaries without falling into old patterns of justification or defensiveness." Together, we crafted language that was both compassionate and firm. I practiced responses to likely deflections or dismissals. By the end of the session, I felt equipped to have a conversation I'd been avoiding my entire adult life. As I drove home, I realized something profound had changed within me. For the first time, my sense of self-worth wasn't contingent on my family's validation. I could love them without needing them to fill the void their own behavior had created. I could set boundaries without guilt. I could build a life rich with connections that nourished rather than depleted me. That evening, I texted my parents. "I'd like to meet and talk this weekend. Just the three of us at a neutral location. How about coffee at Green Street Cafe on Saturday at 10? My mother's response came quickly, "We'll be there." No defensiveness, no accusations of overreaction. Perhaps the 2 weeks of distance had affected them too. Whatever awaited me at that coffee shop, I knew I was approaching it as a different person than the one who had fled Sunday dinner in tears 2 weeks ago. I was approaching it as someone who finally understood her own worth. Saturday morning dawned clear and crisp. I selected my outfit carefully, professional but not rigid, a blue blouse that always made me feel confident. This wasn't a business meeting, but it was important to feel grounded in my own strength. Green Street Cafe was busy but not crowded when I arrived 10 minutes early. I selected a table in the corner, partially secluded but still in public view. Dr. Taylor had suggested a neutral, public location to help maintain boundaries and prevent the conversation from devolving into old patterns. My parents arrived precisely at 10, my father's punctuality a lifelong trait. Mom looked anxious, Dad stoic, their default expressions for difficult conversations. I took a deep breath as they approached, reminding myself of the script I'd practiced with Dr. Taylor. "Thank you for coming," I said as they settled into their seats. "I thought it would be good for us to talk face to face. We've been worried about you," Mom started. 2 weeks of barely any communication. I held up a hand gently. I needed that time to process my feelings and gain perspective. "That's actually part of what I want to discuss today." The waiter came to take our orders, providing a brief reprieve from the tension. Once he left, I continued. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our family dynamic and my place in it," I began, maintaining eye contact despite my racing heart. The dinner and photo incident brought to the surface feelings I've had for many years, but never fully expressed. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Brooke, we've already explained that was a misunderstanding." "Please, let me finish," I said firmly but without hostility. "This isn't just about one dinner. It's about a pattern where I've consistently felt excluded, overlooked, and undervalued in this family." I proceeded to outline specific instances, holidays where my achievements were glossed over while my siblings were celebrated, family events I discovered after the fact, the consistent dismissal of my feelings as too sensitive. "I'm not saying any of this was intentional," I clarified, noting my mother's distressed expression. "I don't believe you set out to make me feel this way. But impact matters more than intent, and the impact has been painful." Mom's eyes welled with tears. "Brooke, we never meant to hurt you. We love you." "I believe you love me," I said gently. "But love isn't just a feeling, it's actions. It's making someone feel valued and included. It's respecting their feelings even when you don't understand them." Dad, ever the problem solver, leaned forward. "What can we do to fix this then?" "I'm not asking for a fix as much as a change in our relationship moving forward," I explained. "I need my feelings to be acknowledged rather than dismissed. I need to be included in family events or at least informed about them. I need my accomplishments to be celebrated with the same enthusiasm as Jason's or Ashley's." I paused, taking a sip of my coffee before continuing. "Most importantly, I need you to respect my boundaries. Sometimes I might need space. Sometimes I might decline family events if they don't feel healthy for me. That doesn't mean I don't love you, it means I'm taking care of myself." My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication developed over decades of marriage. "We didn't realize you felt this way," Mom finally said. "I suppose we've always seen you as the strong one, the independent one who didn't need as much attention." "Everyone needs to feel valued, Mom. Being self-sufficient doesn't mean I don't need emotional support and recognition." Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional terrain, but making an effort. "I think we can do better about including you and acknowledging your accomplishments. That promotion you got, that was a big deal. We should have made more of it." It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the pattern, but it was something, a crack in the wall of denial. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground we'd never explored before. There were defensive moments, old patterns trying to reassert themselves, but I remained centered in my new understanding, gently but firmly redirecting when necessary. By the time we parted, no miraculous transformation had occurred. Decades of family dynamics don't change in one conversation, but something had shifted. My parents had actually listened, perhaps for the first time. They'd agreed to family therapy, something I never imagined they'd consider. Most importantly, I'd spoken my truth without being derailed by their reactions, a personal victory that felt more significant than any external outcome. The next challenge came that afternoon when Ashley texted asking to meet. We arranged to meet at a park near her apartment, neutral territory again. Mom and Dad said you had a big talk with them this morning, she said as we walked along the path. We did. It was overdue. Ashley was quiet for a moment. They said you felt excluded. That we haven't valued your accomplishments enough. I nodded, waiting to see where she was going with this. At first I thought it was ridiculous, she admitted. Like, you've always been the golden child in my eyes, perfect grades, great job, nice apartment. I've been jealous of you for years. This stopped me in my tracks. Jealous? Of me? But you're the one who's always been celebrated for everything. Ashley laughed without humor. Because I needed the encouragement. Don't you see? You were always so capable, so independent. I was the screw-up who needed constant validation. It was a perspective I'd never considered, that my perceived self-sufficiency had been interpreted as superiority, that what I saw as preferential treatment had been compensatory support. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel less than, I said sincerely. That was never my intention. I know, she said, surprising me by reaching for my hand. And I'm sorry if I contributed to making you feel excluded. I honestly never saw it that way. We continued walking, the conversation flowing more easily than it had in years. For the first time, we were speaking as adults rather than as siblings locked in childhood roles. By the time we parted, something had healed between us, not completely, but substantially. Jason proved more difficult. When I called, he was defensive and dismissive, falling back on, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." But even he eventually conceded, "I guess I never really thought about how things looked from your perspective." The real test came the following weekend when I decided to host a gathering at my apartment. Not the entire extended family, but a core group. My parents, siblings, Stephanie, and a few close friends who had supported me through this journey. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Stephanie asked as she helped me prepare. "I think so," I said, arranging a fruit platter. It feels important to reclaim some control, to be the one extending the invitation rather than waiting to be included. The evening wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments, old dynamics threatening to resurface. But there were also new patterns emerging, my father asking detailed questions about my recent work project, my mother noticing and complimenting the photography prints I'd recently hung, Ashley sharing a genuine laugh with Stephanie over a shared interest in true crime podcasts. Most significantly, when the time came for a group photo, I wasn't relegated to the edge or asked to be the photographer. My mother actually rearranged people to ensure I was centered in the frame, a small gesture that spoke volumes. Later that evening, I posted the photo to my own Instagram with the caption, "With my chosen family, both born and found." #grateful. It wasn't petty retaliation. It was an honest expression of my new understanding that family extends beyond blood ties to include those who truly see and value us. My mother called the next day. "I saw your post," she said, her voice tentative. "It was a lovely photo. And I understand what you meant by chosen family. I'm glad you still choose us, despite everything." It was perhaps the most self-aware statement I'd ever heard from her, an acknowledgement that our relationship was a choice, not just an obligation. It wasn't an explicit apology for years of feeling marginalized, but it was a recognition that things needed to be different moving forward. The changes weren't dramatic or immediate. There were still moments of frustration, of falling back into old patterns. But something fundamental had shifted, not just in how my family treated me, but in how I allowed myself to be treated. I no longer measured my worth by their validation. I no longer accepted dismissal of my feelings as normal. I had found my voice, and having found it, I couldn't go back to silence. 6 months have passed since that fateful Instagram notification that changed everything. 6 months of therapy, of difficult conversations, of establishing and maintaining boundaries, of building a life centered on my own worth rather than external validation. My apartment looks different now, a physical manifestation of my internal transformation. Gone are the generic decorations selected for their inoffensiveness. In their place are bold art pieces that speak to me, photographs from my new hiking adventures, pottery from the class I've continued taking. It's a space that reflects who I am rather than who I thought I should be. My career has flourished too. The confidence I've developed in personal relationships has translated to professional settings. 3 months ago, I received another promotion, senior portfolio manager, overseeing a team of my own. When I called my parents with the news, they suggested taking me out to dinner to celebrate. At the restaurant, they presented me with a small gift and a card signed by the entire family. It wasn't extravagant, but it was acknowledgement, something I'd sought for so long. My relationship with my family has evolved into something I wouldn't have recognized a year ago. It's not perfect, and perhaps it never will be. Old habits resurface, old wounds occasionally reopen. But the difference is that now, these issues are addressed rather than ignored. We've had 4 family therapy sessions, awkward and challenging, but ultimately productive. We've developed a new language for expressing needs and boundaries. Ashley and I have developed a genuine friendship, meeting for coffee weekly without the competitive undercurrent that once defined our interactions. She recently confided her own struggles with feeling measured against my academic achievements, giving me insight into how differently we experience the same family. Jason has been slower to adapt to the new dynamic, still occasionally falling into dismissive patterns. But even he has shown growth, making a point to ask about my life and interests rather than dominating conversations with his own stories. The most profound changes, however, have been in my relationships outside the family. I've deepened friendships that had been surface level for years, allowing myself to be truly known rather than presenting a carefully curated version of myself. I've reconnected with old friends and made new ones through pottery class and a hiking group I joined. I've even started dating again after a 2-year hiatus following a difficult breakup. Michael is a kindergarten teacher I met through the hiking group, kind, thoughtful, and refreshingly direct in his communication. He listens when I speak, asks questions because he's genuinely interested, and never makes me feel like my feelings are too much. It's still new, but it's healthy in a way my previous relationships weren't, largely because I'm approaching it from a place of self-worth rather than seeking validation. Dr. Taylor and I have reduced our sessions to twice monthly, focusing now on maintaining growth rather than addressing crisis. "The work you've done is remarkable," she told me recently. "Not many people have the courage to disrupt family patterns established over decades." Last month, we had another family dinner at my parents' house. As we gathered around the table, my mother asked everyone to share something they were grateful for, a new tradition she'd instituted after our 3rd family therapy session. When my turn came, I said, "I'm grateful for difficult truths that lead to necessary change. And for family, both born and chosen, who are willing to grow together." After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. "I found some old photo albums," she said, leading me to the living room where several books lay spread on the coffee table. "I've been looking through them, trying to see our family history through your eyes." Together, we flipped through pages of family events, holidays, vacations, celebrations. She paused at a Christmas photo from when I was about 12, pointing to my position at the edge of the frame, slightly separated from the group. "I never noticed it before," she said quietly. "How often you were literally on the periphery." "I'm sorry, Brooke. I really didn't see it." It was perhaps the most direct acknowledgement she'd ever made of the family dynamic that had caused me so much pain. Not a dismissal, not a justification, but recognition. "Thank you for seeing it now," I replied, squeezing her hand. Later that evening, my father asked everyone to gather for a family photo. As we arranged ourselves, he gently guided me to the center of the group. "Our senior portfolio manager should be front and center," he said with a wink. The resulting photo, which my mother posted the next day, was captioned, "Family, complicated but worth the work. No, most beloved people. No exclusivity." Just an honest acknowledgement of the complex, imperfect, but valuable connections we share. Looking at that photo now, I see not just a group of related people, but a visual representation of a profound life lesson. The people who truly love you make space for you at the table. But more importantly, I learned that I deserve that space, whether they make it or not. Sometimes the most painful exclusions lead to the most powerful self-inclusion. If there's one thing I want to share from this journey, it's this: your worth isn't determined by others' ability to see it. Building a life centered on self-value rather than external validation is difficult, uncomfortable work, but it's the most important work you'll ever do. Because when you truly know your own worth, you stop accepting treatment that contradicts it. You build boundaries, you cultivate relationships that nourish rather than deplete, and you create a life that reflects who you truly are rather than who others expect you to be. What about you? Have you ever felt excluded from your own family or friend group? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below to share your experience. Your story might help someone else feeling the same way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Remember, we're all on this journey together, and sometimes the family we need most is the one we build ourselves. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own path to self-worth and authentic connection.